This week's videos are sponsored by ACORNS, the money app that makes it simple and cheap to make small yet significant investments.
Got a real laugh, got a real factoid, ready to roll?
Ready to roll, man. Ready to roll. I'm glad we talked beforehand. And now that we're on here, I just want to say, first off, as we kick this off, thank you, John Humphrey, for setting all this up. As you guys can see, we are not at the Preserve today because it's raining like crazy and LA just doesn't know how weather works. And so where we're normally shooting, the weather is it's all, the power's completely out. And then it turned into a giant snowball effect of a bunch of things. And one of them was the main one that was like, well, we have to, I want to prove we can be consistent about this.
Yeah, dude.
And for our tech side of the team, which is primarily John just came back here, Jared a bunch of stuff so we can at least shoot today.
Yeah.
And this is all him. So thank you, John, for doing that. Very much.
Thank John in the
you deserve
comments.
A lot of credit. We're not wearing headphones right now, so we're gonna have to do our best to be person. But anyway, we were talking, and I just want to ask, like, right away, Coy, I did not watch your review for Captain America: Brave New World. The reviews are out.
Yes.
The reviews are not good. I would say I don't think it's good.
Fair assessment.
I don't think it's good. And but I haven't seen it. I was gone yesterday, and for the first big movie of the year, since part of the trade-offs here at Real Rejects is we have to, like, some people have to draw the short straws. And I was like, you know what? It's the first big movie of the year. I'll skip it. And Aaron's going to skip it. And so we're the ones skipping, and Andrew too. So then we're going to react to it here. So we don't know anything about it. We haven't seen it. Generally, low review scores don't affect my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't really get affected by hearing other people's opinion. I know, like, you're pretty adamant about not.
I'm pretty singular. Like, I just don't want to be, I don't want my subconscious to dance around like, was that my take?
Okay.
Or did I let it be? Because everybody's a sponge, but I'm aware that I'm impressionable if it's someone I respect.
What was, like, the summation of your feelings on the movie? Like what you said in the Out of the Theater review with John. And what else would you want to perhaps elaborate on in a way that is non-spoiler?
Yeah.
Like, did you give it a rating?
I 3 out of 5. I'm a 5-star system on Letterboxd. It's not, it's not great. It's not bad, but that's how I feel about the movie. I think the movie had a lot to say, but every time it had something that should have been said with conviction, it kind of whispered it. And I think that the best MCU movies are
so it kind of shied away.
Yeah, the best MCU movies, I think, have conviction. And I think if you look at Iron Man, it's a man that went from a warmonger to someone that used his weaponry to save people. And they literally named the villain Warmonger. Like, the comics named him first. But, like, the movies that I think have the right thing to say, like the found family element in Guardians of the Galaxy, the Winter Soldier being a man who dedicated his life to represent a symbol that betrayed him, those are the things that make the best of the MCU strong. And I feel like this movie had a lot of really important things to say, but the things that made the things important are the climate that I think made it change. I think the very nature of the environment of the world today is what should have been addressed, but I think the very nature of the world today made them go like, oh, maybe not.
Well, so can I ask you, okay, so what did you think Winter Soldier was saying? What did you think Civil War was saying? And what do you think this is saying?
So I think Winter Soldier was saying that if you dedicate your life to something that you believe in, if that organization or system changes, recognizing that and then holding true to your ideals of what those beliefs actually are. What do you stand for? What is the flag to you? You are Captain America, but if America is changing and the system is changing, what do you do in the face of that change?
Right, yeah, because it's America, you think, landed the free home of the brave, and they were doing all this, like, control without free. Yeah, so and that's why he doesn't agree with the Sokovia Accords.
Exactly, and that's his arc, and he keeps true to his word. And that's why I don't mind him retiring. I think that he served and he did what he believed was right, and then he earned that off-duty time. So Civil War to me is the juxtaposition of Cap's ideals of freedom and being independent and that very thing from Winter Soldier versus Tony's belief that the greater good is all that matters. He wants to put an armor around the world, but that is at the cost of privacy. So independence versus privacy. Authoritarian concepts that I'm not saying Tony's authoritarian, but he's willing to dabble and look at them, and Steve isn't. So Civil War is that conflict of interest of what do we do with registration? What do we do with freedom, and what those things mean ideally? So that's a very strong message.
Yeah.
It's privacy. It is something that we have given up.
Those movies are definitely rooted in the
in the themes, I would say.
Yeah.
They're not turning to the camera and being like, here's what it's about.
And that's a
but they're
good
rooted
written
in the
movie.
themes.
A well-written movie doesn't have to be like
Yes. As much as people say they don't want politics in those movies, those two movies are incredibly political.
Captain America.
Yeah. They're
Political,
very working in the government, and they might be lying to the people. Yeah. They're very political movies.
This one is very aware that it is standing on the shoulders of those films while being the first Captain America Sam Wilson movie. The problem is it's a very charged visual and it's a very charged concept that never is charged in its execution. So visually, you're watching an espionage thriller with a black man as Captain America with a black man who was imprisoned wrongfully for 30 years. And that takes the back seat. And then the other things get brought up and then they take the back seat. And then you've got this is not a spoiler, it's in the trailer. Then you've got the president who is, trying to control his history and trying to look back as Thunderbolt Ross, like his past misdeeds. And we see him in the trailer turn into the Hulk. There's so much beautiful allegory towards someone trying to be in control that's in a controlling position. There's so much beautiful allegory for people that are diametrically opposed trying to unite the country. What Sam Wilson believes, and in this case, what we have, I'm trying to be careful, what we have the beliefs of Thunderbolt Ross that we know to be literally Ross imprisoned Sam. He was in the raft because of those accords. We, with just context of prior films, know they disagree on something. The film could have been what it's like to unite the United States, even when you don't disagree and seeing across the aisle. I don't think we've ever needed that movie more. And the movie does grasp it. It's like a feather. It goes, yes. But it could have been the movie. And what I think might have happened was that was the movie. And then the writing was on the wall of the way things were going to go, and then reshoots. And I don't know if there was one reshoot or four. I've heard the movie's 4 different movies. I've heard they just did the standard. Whatever happened neutered the impact of what is the most topical thing.
Could you tell it was reshot?
There was a decent amount of ADR that was like, and then there was also scenes that were like lighting would be different. There were scenes where I was like, okay, guys, we're here. Not as bad as like a Madam Web, but certainly not. Marvel always builds in their additional photography days. This did not feel like that.
Okay.
And that's a shame because Sam Wilson deserves better. And like Harrison Ford, dude, it's in the trailers. Adamantium is spoken by Harrison Ford, and the little kid in me was like, what? Like, it was so cool to hear Harrison Ford be invested. Like, he's having a great time. Like, Harrison Ford is not phoning this in. He's incredible in the role. Anthony Mackie is Captain America in his own way. There's a lot of interesting commentary in the Super Soldier Serum and all these things. But every time there was something interesting, they're like, let's go to an action scene that doesn't really feel as important. And that felt off.
How was the action? I've seen like a couple of responses. The one response because there's certain personalities out there who seem to generally like most things, right? I'm not going to say everything, but it seems like most things they tend to lean positive on.
Some would say that's me.
Some would say that's you. I think in the TikTok world, like Soups is one. I've heard several opinions about this movie, surprisingly, and Soups was one of them. And Soups came out, Matt Ramos, and he was very upfront about like, I didn't like this movie. And one of the things he talked about was the action being bad. And I was like, it was one of those moments where I'm like, wow, I don't really take anyone's opinion on it. And I know me well enough to know that like in a few weeks when it's out on VOD, I'll be able to wipe the slate clean and just
have your experience.
Have my experience, exactly, and I know me well enough to know that when I've heard a lot of dogging, which I didn't think he was doing, but when I've heard enough of dogging on something, I tend to find the good.
Yeah.
If I tend to hear too much good, I tend to find the bad. It's the way my mind is. So I understand with not wanting to hear too much. So my point is I just need distance from the opinions in a few weeks from now. But yeah, I did have that effect as an audience member who hasn't seen it, because normally with these movies, I'm kind of with the crowd now, right? I'm with the reviewers, the social media influencers. I'm hearing the opinions, but I also have my own opinion because I just saw it.
Right.
I didn't see it this time, so to see that, I did find the effect of, oh, there must actually be something wrong with this.
Yeah.
Especially from Soups,
Yeah.
So. Is the action like not great to you even?
I really liked the third act action. but I was already
Okay.
at that point aware that I didn't love the first 2 acts. I thought the story got better in the second act. Like the first act, I was genuinely worried, and I'm glad I could tell this to people if they haven't seen it, spoiler free. It gets better, but then the second act, I found myself like ebbing and flowing in and out of being interested, and the
Okay.
action was never what brought me back in. So I'm not saying the action was bad, but it was never enough to be like, if I was out in a moment, the action never brought me back. But then in the third act, the story and action reach a point where I'm like, oh great,
Yeah.
but I mean that's a journey.
And as Captain America, Anthony Mackie, do you genuinely feel like he is the new Captain America, or did the movie not quite get there?
I genuinely feel like parts of the movie made it very clear and it felt like it, but other parts of the movie. Phase 1 was the first Captain America movie, and he had an entire movie to become Captain America. They literally had a montage. They had all the like stuff. And then I feel like he became Captain America when he came out of the ice. Like he was Cap the whole movie, but coming out of the ice is what Captain America is to me. They throw him in as Captain America because of the events of Falcon and Winter Soldier. That felt weird, and I had to kind of adjust. So I don't know if I was adjusting because of the format of the movie. I don't know if I was adjusting because, you know, Steve Rogers is Cap to me in 15 years of lore. I don't know if I was adjusting because in the comics right now, but there was a moment of like, oh, right. I did at moments go like, yeah, Captain America, but it's also a movie that says Captain America a lot. And I don't know if I don't notice that in other movies, but I kept being like, I got it.
Like they're trying to be like, he's Captain America now. He's Captain America now.
Well, there's like scenes where there's like groups who are like Captain America, Captain America. And I was like, we get it. And like, I don't know if I just haven't seen the other ones recently enough. Like maybe they do too, but I noticed it in this one where I was like, yeah, he is. Like, it's like when someone says someone's name too much in a script. Hey, Greg Alba, Greg Alba said, Greg, like it's like that. And I don't know, again, if it was because of a crowd scene or what they were trying to do, but I was very aware of it. And then there were times where I was like, dude, he's Captain America. Like I felt it instead of hearing it. I wanted to feel it more. And I felt like that movie was in there, but it was buried. And I think those are the two things I would want to change about Marvel is the specificity of vision, which is what I was talking about at the beginning. Like you asked me what Winter Soldier and Civil War were to me. I knew exactly what it was. I even know what this movie could be, but I think Marvel needs to get back to that. Like, this is this movie's message. Now, saying that, I can already see the comments of like, we're beaten over the head by messages already. Every movie should have a message. I'm not saying the messaging should be so contrived and beating you over the head, but a movie should have a message.
I think a lot of the best movies, believe it or not, I think it was like Taika Waititi, when people liked him, said this. Fascinating career, that man.
Yeah, dude.
He used to be like, the shit. And now it's like, fucking Taika Waititi.
It's so crazy. What a career.
It's so wild how one movie can do you in like that.
And I'd be so scared to work for Marvel if I was any, like, if you could see where Taika went from and to.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's gnarly, right? It's nuts. Anyway, but I obviously don't know. I don't know the quote word by word, but I remember him talking about it, and it was like a light bulb moment for me as someone who likes to write, which is a lot of times you just have to write what you're feeling, like just on paper. Not, I have a message and theme in mind. Let me go in and now write the story.
Right.
As you write the story, then after the first draft or second, then you're like, okay, I think I know what the movie's about. I think Aaron Sorkin's even talked about that.
Yeah.
It's like after you write your first draft, you might have an idea what the movie's actually about then.
Yeah.
And I think then it becomes about refining that theme, refining the film to fit that. So when I do hear about all these crazy reshoots, it does start to sound like shit.
What
It's
it could
a
have been.
committee movie type of deal. Of course, I'm going to go in and I'm gonna be like, wow, that movie. There has to be a movie where it like turned out like great still, right? I mean, I'm sure Marvel's had
but
that
we just
many
don't,
times.
yeah, we don't know because
Marvel's-
we just loved it.
Yeah, Marvel's had them. I mean, Iron Man wasn't even like finished script wise. Like the disaster of the thing that started the MCU was a lot of like, we are figuring this shit out
and
as
writing
we're
it. I was
going.
like,
Yeah. So it's like, of course, like there's a world to make it work. It's just when you look at generalities, when you look at what's happened before, it's really easy to surmise like, oh man, there might be some real problems with this movie. And I'm sorry to hear that. So what does Captain America mean to you? And what did this movie miss then in terms of what Captain America is?
So Captain America to me is the ideals of what freedom represents. Like when I think of America, I think of freedom. I think of the freedom to choose, the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of it's those stripes and stars to me are freedom. Like that's the American exceptionalism I kind of dabbled with talking about Top Gun. Like to me, it's like we do what needs to be done. But then there's also the United States element of freedom doesn't mean someone else gets hurt because of you. We're united. We need to make sure it is fixing societal things. Like we're united together, but free. And that's a tricky juxtaposition, right? Like, what is the greater good that doesn't cost you your freedom, and does your freedom impede on others? And so to me, America is finding the balance of you being able to feel like you're as free as to do the things you want to do that don't harm others, and America respecting that, but also making sure that it is a functioning government and country. So it's a constant balance act, because we change constantly. Like 100 years ago was 1924, 25. And like, that was a different country. You know what I mean? Like 3 people ago was the 1800s. And like, we had different issues then. We had different problems then. We had different, like, so as America evolves, so too does Captain America. As American ideals evolve, I think the country needs to be a living organism like the English language is. Like, our language changes. Every year we get new words in the dictionary every so often. That's why, like, I'm a big believer in us agreeing to things and as a country going like, this is what I believe in. But I also don't agree that just because it's written down once and worked for a time, it's forever. Like, I don't necessarily think that everything that got written with a feather should apply to today. It was written with a feather. So like, Captain America to me is likewise an evolving character of, what are today's problems? What do we need to address? How do we find the balance of freedom for self and freedom of government? And to me, Captain America is, I'm doing my job. Like, Captain America is the individual that makes sure that the American citizens are represented in a way that feels true to his American ideals. And he's empowering the little guy, and he's making sure that people that can't fight are being fought for in a just way. Like, he's justice in balance, but not in the Punisher way.
Yeah. Do you feel like the ones with Chris Evans truly capture that?
I do. I think Chris Evans elevated the character from the comics. Like, I like Chris Evans's take more than the average Captain America comic. I think it's more palatable. I think the corniness, when it is there, is more digestible in the medium of film. Like, I think the cheese inherent to wearing a spangled suit works when it's a little cheeky versus like, that guy's in red and white and blue and fighting people. Like, it doesn't always translate in the page. It does at times, but it doesn't always. I think what Chris Evans did and what the Russo brothers did and what Joe Johnston did really found a way to balance all that. And to me, it's very indicative of the 2000s. Like, there's an Ultimates comic run where, you know, Captain America is like edgier and he's like a little bit more violent. And there's this really iconic frame that's like a splash page, and Captain America's pointing to the A in his head. He's like, do you think this stands for France? And it's literally about like not giving up. And like, that's the most like post 9/11 thing, right? Like, we were like, and like, that's of that time. And so that's what I mean about evolving. Like, I think that's the Captain America we saw him as in the 2000s to some people. And I think Chris Evans really beautifully represents what he was in the 2010s. And I think there is absolutely an element of people feeling like they're not seen and people feeling like they're not represented that Sam Wilson embodies in so many ways. One, as a black man, but two, as a guy that is on super soldier serum that is fighting alongside gods, and he's like the everyday guy. 3, as a military man that's just trying to do the right thing. Like, to me, Sam Wilson absolutely embodies 2020's ideals for what it is to be like, I need to be represented too. And that to me is an important element of, I mean, we have representatives in this government. Like, that's a part of what it is to be an American.
I heard a point of view from, I believe it was John Campea, actually, who said that he doesn't think, like, he likes Sam Wilson as Captain America, but he doesn't think Captain America should be leading the Avengers just because he got the title, the mantle passed down to him.
Should be like earned, he thinks?
Yeah, I think so. And I think he was saying, like, if we're going to just go by like military and longevity and whatever, it's like maybe Rhodey would stand a better chance, I guess. Like, whatever. I honestly, I don't want to act like I'm quoting him. I'm just paraphrasing what I remembered him saying.
Yeah.
But it did stand out to me, and I was curious to know, like, do you feel like Captain America needs to be the leader of the Avengers? And if so, do you think Sam Wilson should be the leader of the Avengers? And does this movie do anything to elevate that opinion?
I think Captain America should absolutely be in consideration. I don't mind if there's an element of like, we should figure out who the leader is. I think that's an important dynamic to a team. So I think that should be part of the story. I don't think he should necessarily be like, my name's Captain, and like fall in it. I mean, like, that would be, you know, a little like, all right, great, you got a title. But I do think there is a military leadership angle. Like, I believe in Cyclops as a leader because he's a tactical trained leader. He should be the leader not because of popularity or not because of seniority, but because he's tactician. So in that way, Captain America over like Doctor Strange. Like Doctor Strange is more powerful, but he's a bit of a dick. So like he shouldn't be in control or in charge. So, you know, Doctor Strange's seniority length of tenure, but I wouldn't say that would be the thing. So I think it would be a subjective element of like what the leader needs to be doing in that moment. And that's why there's often multiple leaders like Cyclops and Storm. So, but I'm really curious. You asked me some great questions, but like, what do you see America as?
What do I see America as?
Yeah. Because that's such a hard question. I had to answer off the dome. I'm really curious if I made a fool of myself.
No, I mean, I guess that answer is always ever evolving, right? You mean America, the country, not Captain America.
Yeah. I mean, I answered both.
Okay.
I'm just curious. I hadn't considered it. I've never thought of it.
Honestly,
since
man,
history class.
it's been such a journey to me to even figure out like what I even feel about Los Angeles as the one microcosm, right? Of like the part I inhabit. When all these fires were happening, I was like, damn, what is LA pride? It's been a real question on my mind. You know, I've been getting really into with my Filipino side and learning to have like more like Pinoy pride, and just thinking about Los Angeles. I'm like, man, I don't even have much pride about being from LA.
And you're actually,
and I'm actually from here. What I do know that I love about LA is kind of what I love about America. I know for some reason this word is just such a trigger point for some reason. I love the diversity. I love that almost everyone I meet out here is some hodgepodge of a bunch of different races. Outside of you, my 100% Irish friend. No, you're not 100%. You're not 100%.
I'm not 100%.
Right?
7/8.
But most people I meet are like some type of like crazy mixture of things. And then I love that when I hear like I'm no expert on how any other countries are run. I'm barely even intermediate at understanding how other countries are run.
yeah.
I love that across the street from me are neighbors who have been there for me in really, 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 really tough times, who have very different political views than me, and we can get along. And I wish America was represented more like that, where like we talk a lot about the other side of people on YouTube.
Yeah.
I absolutely would love to have conversations with like there was one guy I said who had, at the Mufasa screening who I often see on like a nerdrotic video or something like that, and he was in the group, and I wasn't like tense. I was like, I want to engage. I want to talk. I want to hear other people. And to me, when I think about America, it's really easy to get it inflated with what social media tells me what America is versus when I actually travel, because I notice everyone's bubble, everyone's state and world or whatever is affected by algorithmic point of views.
Sure.
In terms of like Captain America, this conversation is really interesting to me because I'm asking you these questions because I don't really have super strong opinions about Captain America. You asked me about Captain America, I would go, wow, like it is very like two-dimensional. It's almost akin to like a two-dimensional version of a Superman, right? Like, yeah, he wears a suit. I'm an American guy. Thumbs up. I'm nice. And that's about it. Like you do the right thing. And I would agree in how Winter Soldier and Civil War, especially because I'm totally on Steve's side in Civil War. I would totally agree that I feel Chris Evans did so much for that character.
Yeah. To
represent a struggle in the face of adversity of not just complying, which is really strong. That's one of the hardest things to do when you're especially in a position like that, just because I love those movies because like it's actually this conversation I've often found Winter Soldier to be actually overrated, and my opinion is very much like drastically I'm just
sorry.
Throwing that out there casually for anyone who has heard me say that.
Roxy, clip it.
I don't like I'm not in love with that movie as much as most people, because I'm not really in love with Captain America. However, reflecting on stuff has making my perspective kind of enhance, and then looking back on the movie, I'm going, but that movie did it right because they really set the obstacles up for this guy. And I don't know what I want from a Sam Wilson, a Captain America. I don't know. And I'm like breezing through reviews, and it's like, I've been saying like, I want this to feel like Anthony Mackie's Captain America, but I'm like, I don't even know what that means to me of what when I walk away, I'm like, yes, he is Captain America. Like, I don't know what it means, where you seem to have like a really deeper understanding of what you thematically, morally believe Captain America to actually exist as. And
I think I spent a lot more time thinking about it than the average person.
yeah, but I feel like you just because you do doesn't mean it's not there in the deep recesses of other people's minds. You know, there's
all
got to
I'm
be.
saying it's not a negative or a positive is I think that most people don't think about these characters and what they represent to them or how they would write them or what they do differently outside of like the movie's 2 hours and then maybe half an hour after. Like I've thought about what Sam Wilson would do in a movie I wrote. I've thought about if I met someone that like Captain America, how I would describe why I like him. But what's ironic is I'm more of an Iron Man guy. What got me to like Captain America was Chris Evans's take, but I'm still more of an Iron Man identifier.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that like a lot of people would assume, and a lot of people have told me like, oh, Captain America is probably your favorite. Like that's how you come across. Like everybody thinks of me as like, shucks and happy and joy and like just saying the positive. But I identify way more with someone in a position of like, I got to make sure my people are good. I will put a suit of armor around my world. And like, I'm much more sarcastic than earnest, especially when confronted. So it's interesting that like Sam Wilson to me, I don't have as many years. He's only been Cap for 10 years. 2014 was in their first writing him as Cap. He's only been Cap for 10 years. For anyone, I have a vision of what I would do with that character more than I know what I would do with Steve Rogers.
You see, earlier in this talk, you said something that I had never concluded, and I'm like, well, yeah, that just makes sense. Of when I asked you what Captain America means, you start talking about America for a reason, and that's why we're talking about it, right? Because America is constantly changing. It's evolving. You're right. 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago. America's constantly changing. People change, people develop, people grow, whether it be good or bad, depending on the opinion, right? And so like the idea of Captain America being a representative of that culture is cool to me because it's kind of like it could be like an American James Bond in a way where he represents like, because I don't feel like James Bond really represents like the UK at the time, but if they, I mean, in terms of like handing off the mantle or recasting, I don't think it would be as big of a deal like a couple decades from now or something because it's about Captain America representing what America is at that time. And I do think the divide of, I'm like, you know, you hear people constantly say like America's more divided than ever. It's more divided than ever. And I go, well, I'm no historian.
I'm pretty sure we had a war over this.
I feel like it's always divided, isn't it? There's always a division, and the point is you don't go to jail for something for just having a different opinion. Yeah. And or at least you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to be like condemned or criticized or something. You're not supposed to. Like that's the rule, right? And I would like a Captain America that does represent unity. So it's interesting talking with you as someone who hasn't seen the movie, as someone who watched the trailers and did not get anything of what you were talking about thematically, what this movie's going for, and to hear it and be like, I could actually see a version of how they did miss that mark.
I have a very clear vision of like a few things I would change that would be small tweaks that would change everything because I know what I want.
Did you see the reviews before they came out?
No. I avoid because it was only 2 days that I think the embargo dropped like 36 hours.
Do you know what it's at? Do you know what's at now, John? The reviews for Captain America? Huh?
Like Rotten Tomatoes, do you know the score by chance?
54.
Okay.
I think it came out at like 48 and it was like 52.
That's like Eternals level.
Yeah, but Eternals was like the first.
Yeah. I don't think Marvel is the Goliath it was. I think just as far as like immunity, I think there was like, oh, you gave Marvel a bad review and like it was unheard of and now it's not.
I think the reviews, I was like, what? How does this make me feel? Do I feel nothing? What's wrong, John? What's wrong? You have a panic?
Oh, there's water coming in? Oh, a lot of it. Oh, there's about 2 inches of water behind me, Greg. We're going to just keep, this is, LA does not know how to water.
No.
It is substantial.
No, we're not going to just keep it going. We're going to have a little pause in between here. Reject Nation, how are you feeling? I've been thinking a lot about feelings lately, maybe because it's New Year's, and New Year's resolutions, they can be tough to stick to, don't you know? I can't count how many times I've set a goal only to let it fizzle out by February. But what if some of those goals could be made automatic?
You just need a good transition to talk about it. And you know what? I'm excited to talk about it. And it's today's sponsor, ACORNS. Why I'm excited? Because I personally use ACORNS myself, so it's exciting just to share it with all of you. Because they make it incredibly easy to start automatically saving and investing so your money has a chance to grow. You know, you've always heard that forever. Have your money work for you, and this is a great opportunity to do. Here's what was told to me before I signed up, and I found it to be absolutely true. Number one, you don't need to be an expert. They recommend a diverse portfolio that fits your goals. You don't need a ton of money. You can start investing with as little as $5 or whatever spare change you got, and it's quick. You can set up your account and start investing in like 5 minutes. Because if you're anything like me, investing always felt intimidating. Felt like it was exclusive for like the people who read Rich Dad Poor Dad when they were like 2 years old. But Acorns, they made it simple, and it is pretty cool, like relief feeling how every month I get to check out my Acorns account, watch it grow for a better financial future. It's pretty awesome. So I've seen firsthand how powerful it can be. And there's also another reject here. Won't say who it is, but it's one of the two women, good clue, where they were telling me a story before I signed up for Acorns, how one time it actually got them out of a very big financial bind. And that always stuck with me because it's a reminder that small actions we take today can make a huge difference down the line. If you've been thinking about getting started with investing, or you just know you got to get it going, here's your sign right now. You head to acorns.com/rejects or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. Once again, acorns.com/rejects. Supporting them supports the channel, but more importantly, it supports your bank account. Because of the subject matter, there's one thing I got to say. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisor LLC and SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/rejects. Thank you again, Acorns, for sponsoring this video.
What a Reject Nation. All right, 30 minutes ago, it was a weird podcast. Weird podcast. 30 minutes ago, I saw John get some wild eyes, and I was like, what is going on in the paranoia in John's eyes? And then we look down, and the whole ground is flooded, absolutely flooded. So you might see some people in Coy shot behind him working out there. Had to call people over, neighbors, very helpful. Helping out right now. They know that we just want like 15, 20 more minutes to wrap this up. Then we got people here who did not handle the drainage when they worked outside, and now there's consequences to that. So basically, we were like, but we did a lot of work to make sure to get this podcast back up and running today.
The show must go on.
It must go on. We're going to wrap this up, and we're going to be efficient. This isn't the meandering ones like the last two, and maybe it's better. Who knows?
We'll find out in the comments. We should call this episode How to Fix Marvel, Hell or High Water.
Oh, my God. Wow. Wow. What a journey. Okay, so you talked to me about America.
Yep, and about your take on Captain America being more fluid, because your take on America is a little bit more fluid. I was surprised at the rigidity and my specificity of my beliefs in America and Captain America, and my specificity of Sam Wilson's goals. I didn't know I had that many opinions, and I did, and I think that's where we were.
That's where we were, and I wanted to talk about the Captain America bad reviews.
Okay.
Because I'm in that position where I have not seen this movie yet.
Right.
You have seen this movie, and it's interesting to see someone who's usually pretty positive about Marvel clearly have some negative qualms with it. Not saying you're a negative person about it, but I could see the qualms that you have been pretty honest about. And to me, when I think about the reviews, my mind immediately got a little disheartened, because it's not what happens in these situations. They look at box office, because that seems to determine all levels of success for some reason. That if it makes a lot of money, great. And they often focus on opening weekend. And then sometimes that conversation gets a little bit sad, because the legs on a movie do not sustain itself to show, like the word of mouth on this isn't great. I don't know if audiences are going to love this more than critics do.
I'm really curious to the audience score, because historically they're really low. Rotten Tomatoes, there still is a decent bump.
Yes.
And right now I think 51% is Rotten Tomatoes as of this moment. John looked it up on the break. And then we don't have an audience score yet, but I do know only our friend group and like local critics, like that consensus isn't strong. But I think some of the flaws in the film aren't stuff that the average moviegoer might be vexed by. You know, this might be fun.
But it has to create excitement. It has to create some level of enthusiasm and passion. That's what Marvel did so well in its heyday, in its prime time, right? And what Marvel does now confuses me, because sometimes they get something great, like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
One of the best shows they've ever made, and it came out with a whimper, and it's, I think, up there with X-Men 97 good.
I
don't put that lightly.
No, you don't. And I would agree with you. I think it's a fantastic show. And yet Marvel seemed to not care about promoting it, when more than making money, what they really need to do is prove quality and consistency. And if they have something that is a qualitative product, they should be putting that out there.
Especially if you have something you're not sure about, like Cap 4. Like they're coming out simultaneously. If you know everyone's going to go to the movies, but you have something that's ace in the hole, go like to like curb the bleeding.
Exactly, because then the conversation goes, see, this is the MCU now. This is Marvel now. When you just had an amazing product on television that you'd seem to really just care about putting a few YouTube notifications out
4 weeks of that show when it could have been 10. I know people are probably sick of hearing me say it, but that could have been a 10-week conversation, and it could have overshadowed, even though theatrical is always going to be bigger, it could have overshadowed some of the negative sting. And then you're leading right into Daredevil. This could have been Daredevil while it was airing, and the Daredevil episodes are late in the run. They could have had Daredevil on 2 shows while they were nursing the wounds of Cap 4 if they didn't have faith in it.
So I have this question, though, about Marvel TV.
Yes.
It got me thinking about Falcon and Winter Soldier seeing this reception.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time when Falcon and Winter Soldier came out, I most certainly did not have this thought that I'm about to share with you. And now when I look back, I'm curious to know other people's thoughts on what I'm about to say. And I'd be really curious to know yours. I feel like it was probably a massive disservice to Anthony Mackie as Captain America to have his next thing be a television show that is shared in conjunction with another character and then be about other stuff as well. I think that actually was in detriment to the impact of him being Captain America, the new Captain America, because he's already going to be going up against the fact that he's taking over the mantle from Steve Rogers. He doesn't have superpowers. No one knows Sam Wilson anywhere near as much. I get the show was supposed to be like intended so you get to know Sam Wilson more. But the second you put something on television, I think they put too much stock in there. It feels there's something in the subconscious.
Stigma.
Yes, there's something in the subconscious of people's minds
It's on the
that
small
goes,
screen.
it's not as significant because it's on television. As much as Marvel wanted to be like, this shit is so significant.
Yeah.
Our new Marvel Disney Plus
Which
stuff.
is so ironic because the golden age of TV was right before, like Breaking Bad and all that stuff. And I think they originally wanted to ride that wave, but then enough negativity came out. So the stigma kind of affected the executives.
Yes.
Because I feel like even the executives aren't pushing the shows, even when they are good, like Spider-Man. And it's so interesting when they're like, they doubled down on TV and now they're like these big movie tentpoles, but some of their TV is better than their movies, but they already have this like, oh, the TV didn't work.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
And I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison because, you know,
No,
you
nothing
do
is.
this long enough where you start to hear like the certain comments that come in, right? And immediately I could hear people going, what about WandaVision?
Right.
WandaVision.
What about Daredevil?
What about Daredevil? Well, in terms of WandaVision, as a character from the movies who then got a television show,
Sure.
I actually think that did wonders for Scarlet Witch. I think that absolutely elevated their people's love, mine too, drastically. I didn't really care about Elizabeth Olsen, Scarlet Witch, until that show, and suddenly she became one of my top MCU characters because of how effective she is. Now, whenever there's talk about her returning, I get really excited. Her and Doctor Strange excited the shit out of me that she's actually going to be in that. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I thought was a good show, but certainly being sandwiched between that and Loki, which is the one you actually remember, those two, there's one out of, usually it's like, that's the only one you remember. Actually, in this case, there's 2 you really remember, and there's one you kind of forget it came out.
Yeah.
And so I think I do think that had some level of impact to show, it's kind of like subconsciously telling your audience, even though I know this wasn't their intention. Their intention was this is going to be our way to get us excited. I think that in this case, especially because Captain America is movie, I think it actually might have played some affect and enthusiasm because the marketing in this movie was all about Red Hulk. It wasn't really about Captain America.
I think the marketing is a huge problem. I think Marvel needs to look at their marketing, like to a complete start over again level. The marketing, I don't want to give anything away about the movie, but the marketing in the movie is very different than the movie in only bad ways. And the way this movie is marketed is a lot like Age of Ultron, where knowing the marketing, if you have any sense of movie format, theme structure, and especially if you have comic book knowledge, you sit down and go, oh, wait, am I just putting puzzle pieces together to get to the third act? The movie. And that's really detrimental if you want someone to spend $20 of their money and they hear the movie's not that great and then they watch the trailer and then that's the experience. They're not going to leave like, I want more of that. They're not going to have repeat viewings, which is how you get these billion-dollar movies. They're not going to have people wanting more of that storyline if they feel like they've already been spoon-fed it. I think they had to do Red Hulk heavy marketing campaign because the initial buzz wasn't strong enough. So they're like, oh, we panicked. And they literally had toys for Red Hulk at McDonald's a year and a half ago with the original release date.
I'm gonna ask you for a minor spoiler.
Are you
Is he
okay?
barely in the movie? Red Hulk.
I don't know if we should on a Friday say how much he's in the movie.
I feel like he's barely. Every time I've seen the trailers, I'm like, I bet he's barely in.
He's
This movie.
in the movie more than the trailers, but not enough more.
Okay, I think it's fair
Is
to say
that context?
I don't know if that's a spoiler.
They should not have put a single Red Hulk shot in the trailer.
I feel like a fist or something.
Yeah,
to
or an
allude.
eye going red.
Yeah, but not like a full on.
The movie has a format that makes it feel. Imagine if Memento was like, by the way, this feels like they're like alluding to things that the trailer then is like months ago.
Yeah.
And so there's no way to suspend disbelief to enjoy the experience if you know Z, how do you enjoy T? Like, and that isn't the complete, it's not the whole thing. I will safely say there is more Red Hulk, and Red Hulk is awesome. And that fight and everything you do get that hasn't been spoiled, momentous.
Yeah.
That said, if you know Red Hulk's in it at all, you're undermining an experience. And Marvel used to do, we're going to show you the first 2 acts, and they used to keep the 3rd act. And sometimes they'd even do fake stuff like Infinity War's Hulk thing. They can do that, and they should do that because they're using so many characters. I think the marketing in this movie is like at least $300 million of it being not as successful. I think a huge part of the legs are going to be how much the marketing messed up the movie. So I think Marvel's 2 big things they need to focus on are focusing on theme, focusing on that, like what we talked about, you know, before the flooding. What they need to focus on are that directive, and also their marketing needs to find a new way to make the experience hype without being the movie in short form.
So when you say the marketing being bad, are you saying that the movie was shot, reshoots were probably done just for marketing? I know that's not what you're saying. But is that
wasn't what I
part
was
of the
saying.
subtext at all?
That wasn't what I was saying, but I do think there are things that are new that probably don't fit as well because they were trying to fix things due to marketing. I think they were reactionary. I think Marvel is less, they have less of a vision and they have more of a reaction. I think they listen a bit too much to the overall consensus, and the problem is that consensus changes in 2 years.
Yeah.
So if you make something for the 2027 audience in 2025, by the time you get to 2027, and I think fan impact is important. Look at what happened with Sonic. Look at like the good changes. But at the same time, if you're waiting for the crowd to be like, good job, you didn't make art, you made like, you know,
Another content piece.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think these movies, like Iron Man was hiring a guy that couldn't get work. You couldn't insure Robert Downey Jr. Winter Soldier was like, what if we make Captain America have to go against the grain? Like all of their biggest swings, the rewards were, oh, that's so surprising. If you're giving us just like, that's not surprising. You're just like feeding us what we already expect. So I think they're a little reactionary, and they didn't used to be.
That's been my big problem with Marvel as of late, with all the stuff we've talked about in the past too. That was my first feeling with Russo brothers being hired.
Well, you know my Downey problems. Like I honestly think, and this is all coming from a place of constructive criticism. I always want to be artists first and the art experience first. But at the end of the day, I know they have shareholders, and I know they've got to be a certain level of like profit and all those things. But if you're only focusing on the business and not the show, your show's going to suffer. If you're only focusing on the fan and not the creators, your art is going to suffer. And I feel like the bold swings of hiring very inventive directors and bold writers, that goes away if you're so worried about your bottom line. And I get it has to be a balance, but the balance feels very skewed right now.
Yeah. And I think getting Harrison Ford too in your movie is a huge get.
Oh, it's huge.
Like Harrison Ford, if you guys watch Shrinking or even the clips I've seen of that Western show he's on, like
Dude,
this
he's
guy still cares
so of
to
course.
act. When he's got a role he can really chew on.
He's so good in this.
He's great. And he's good in the movie.
Yeah, he's so
Oh,
good. It
that's
makes me so happy because he's saying things that are like comic stuff. So like my little childhood heart is just like hearing Harrison Ford say the words that I've only read, you know, like it's so special to be like, oh, that's a thing I've read since I was a kid. And it's Harrison Ford putting his all into it.
Okay.
But it still doesn't feel like a story that is singular. So even with Harrison Ford, like Harrison Ford reading the phone book would be interesting. Doesn't mean I want to watch it every day.
You could just have Harrison Ford, like he'll make it better.
Yeah. And
like,
there
he's
are
got to
moments
be
I
there
felt
for
that.
great stuff. Yeah, I get what you mean. But when I look at the future of Marvel, a lot of people do come out with what you just said, Daredevil. But they got Daredevil next. There's something weird in the Marvel movies and the Marvel television. Now it seems like Marvel really wants to separate themselves from Marvel TV to a vast extent.
Like I said, I feel like there's a stigma, which is so strange.
Even with Loki season 2, like that doesn't seem to have much of an effect playing into the bigger picture, even though TVA is referenced in Deadpool and Wolverine. That's about as far as it's really gone with Loki.
Yeah.
Right? Unless I'm totally missing something drastic. That seems to be the biggest extent is the TVA factored in not even what appears to be the same kind of TVA.
Yeah,
like,
they kind of broke their own canon.
Yeah, a different kind of TVA factored into Deadpool and Wolverine. And Daredevil, for all accounts, could be a great show. But is that actually going to have an impact on the conversation changing around Marvel with their quality and consistency? Because, again, it's Marvel TV. Marvel TV seems to be something that Marvel themselves are like, we don't really want to like associate with the television. I don't know why they're like this right
and
now.
It's interesting because that was the same thing with like the Jeff Loeb era of Netflix stuff. Like there was a separation of things. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was like a little bit, but not really. Like they dabble, and it's always been this thing. And then I thought with WandaVision there was going to be like, yeah, but then Multiverse of Madness was like, nah.
Well, once their show started tanking, they started really wanting it, like Secret Invasion, like, and all this stuff. Like once they started really going downhill in terms of started getting more misses than they ought to, where that was overshadowing the conversation. Because that's the strange part. Is like I do think you need the good TV.
Yeah,
I think the part of Marvel's reputation kind of being damaged goes to the television shows as well. When we start thinking about the TV shows, or people were checking in every single week with the new big Marvel event episode of television and not loving it, not for most of them, I would say, but for enough of them, that affects the conversation with Marvel. So I do think it's important to elevate your Marvel television talk as well. That's why you should elevate your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man when it is going great, because part of this thing that they're rebounding with qualitative product, that is factoring in the unqualitative reception from the TV shows. So elevate your TV shows instead of just going, all right, Daredevil's good, but that doesn't really matter.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the optics need to be consistency. Like we keep talking about consistency in general. Marvel needs to be seen as the brand it was, which is like hit after hit after hit. If you've got a hit like Spider-Man, you need that win right now. You need to put the flag up of like, we did a good. And then like Daredevil following it would have been like, oh, look at this 1-2 punch. Cap 4 didn't work out as much as we wanted it to, but we got these 2 wins. It's really odd that they've got these wins that they're not giving the love like you're talking about. And then they're moving to the next thing. Like it doesn't feel like there's any time to celebrate anything. And I know this year is 9 properties because of things being held, because of the strikes, because like there are so many variables outside their control. But at the same time, I don't feel like it's being handled in a way that is celebrating even when the wins happen.
No.
And
that's my big problem with it.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that's what it keeps coming down to.
It doesn't feel like an event.
Because it's a strange point where there was a time to me when reviews like this would come out for a Marvel movie and it would be like, oh man. Now it's like, yeah,
Guess so.
that's what happens.
Do you feel like Daredevil's out in 2.5 weeks?
I'm starting to, because I'm rewatching season 3.
Okay.
And honestly, when I caught a snippet of the trailer again, and I was in conversation with Aaron Alexander, I was like, yeah, dude, you totally said my train of thought that I just kind of kept to myself when I saw the Daredevil trailer. Because like, I'm excited for Daredevil.
I can't wait.
Daredevil is like my favorite. Watching season 3 again. First off, when I watched season 3 back then, I don't know what state of mind I was in or like who I was as a person, because I was part of the camp that wasn't so positively receptive to a lot of it.
I love all 3 seasons.
And I forgot about, and no pun intended, I'm a pretty big defender of season 2. Season 2 tends to get a lot of flack. And I'm like, I don't know, I kind of love season 2 a lot. I don't think it's as strong as season 1. Season 1's like perfect to me.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen Daredevil in so long. The new show's coming out. I'm like, I should at least pick up where we last left off with Daredevil. Let me watch season 3 again. And I've been so in love with the experience, and I completely forgot why I even loved the Daredevil show. I just know I love the Daredevil show.
But why?
Yeah, I forgot why though, because it had been so long, and there have been so many different television shows since then.
Yeah.
So here's my concern that erupted from Daredevil for Daredevil going into the Marvel shows, because there's Marvel TV, and then there's Daredevil.
Oh, yeah.
Daredevil's like, Aaron said it best. It's like a Showtime series. I wouldn't quite call it HBO. I call season 1 HBO.
Sure.
I would call the later ones
Showtime.
More Showtime.
Still quality.
Qualitative ass cable television that is violent and mature.
Yeah.
With good writing, but it's a superhero show.
Yeah.
Okay. And And it's like, I love the Dexter series, and like that's totally
Showtime.
fits for Showtime. Totally
I
fits
like
for
that.
Showtime, right? No, I love Showtime. No slight against them. And I think Daredevil is completely, you could tell it the red and everything. You could totally say it'd be in a Showtime show. And when you watch that show, it is primarily characters just going through shit and talking to each other. And that's what imbues the action and the violence.
100%.
A lot of people talk about, and myself included, like it needs to be rated R. It needs to be rated R. It needs to have violence. I think you can do a Daredevil show without it being hard R. I don't think you can continue this show.
You can't do Daredevil season 4.
Yes, you can't just suddenly Expendables 3 this.
Right.
You're going to get a lot of backlash because the violence is telling of the world. The violence is linked to the DNA of, like, sometimes the violence, while consistently cool, it is also sometimes really disturbing and uncomfortable, and it doesn't feel like, oh shit.
It's an important part of the show.
It's icky sometimes, you
Yeah.
know? I remember in season 2, like when Elektra kills that one person from the hand, and Matt is just watching, like he's just a kid, you know? Like that's
Yeah.
like a lot of people talk about like the head smash scene, which is
Right.
great, very telling of Kingpin. And like the bowling balls, there's like a lot of great violent moments, but I'm talking about the general vibe of it is
Like
important.
the splatter on the white of the wall with the rabbit, like the
Yes.
bunny, that splatter is how I feel about the show. That's telling a story. It's also marking an experience. You're scarred like they're scarred. That violence is key.
Yes.
So you couldn't do a season 4. I totally agree with you. But I also agree that PG-13 Daredevil in some future iteration could work if they start that way. I am also likewise worried about the show only because they're saying, well, I trust the directors implicitly. The showrunner saying, like, I don't want just 2 characters standing around navel gazing. I'm like, I love that.
I'm like, that's
the show.
That's why
Don't
you like
take that away from me.
that's why you like Foggy. That's why
Yeah.
I'm like when I'm looking, that's why I like Karen. So
So I
when
like Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. There's a lot of times his dialogue and just his experience talking it is like riveting.
dude, watching this season, knowing Kingpin is going to how he's going to come out of what the situation is in, and you're seeing all these little manipulation.
Genius.
It is incredible writing. It is
Yeah.
incredible, and also with Vincent D'Onofrio's acting as well. Then it made me go, oh yeah, Hawkeye.
Right.
Oh yeah, I liked Echo, but it is not this. It is not.
And I hope
this
they found their way back.
And so then the showrunner comments, because that's the part is like, I have a ridiculously high standard for this new Daredevil, and that is to be on par. That's all I'm saying, not exceed, just be on par with the seasons that came prior to it. And like I said, there's like a vibe to Marvel Disney Plus television.
Yeah. There's a look.
There's a look. There's a
There's an
vibe.
energy. There's even a conversation tone. Yeah.
Even with the best of the Marvel TV stuff, you know, like Loki season 2 is one of my favorite Marvel things ever. But you're like, yeah, that fits in the Marvel Disney Plus thing they got going on.
It's the darkest of, but it's still in that same toolbox.
And the part that Aaron and I were talking about was the CGI mask that's floating. That was a screen grab for everyone for the Daredevil trailer.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this wouldn't be in the original show.
That's very much Disney Plus.
It's very much a Disney
But
Plus
the
shot.
Muse character feels way more Netflix Showtime.
Yes, it does.
So, like, I'm wondering if they have found the way to do that. Like, I know a lot of people, and this is going to be sacrilege, and I'm sorry for the comments. I know the Flash didn't work for everyone, but one thing I did think worked was the way Muschietti blended Snyder style and Burton style in a few of those moments that it felt like this mashup of artists.
Yeah.
And that is very hard to do directing wise to get a style right. I'm not saying the movie worked, but I think those elements worked. It felt like Burton at times, felt like Snyder at times. I'm hoping this Daredevil show is able to bridge the gap between the Showtime flavor and the Disney Plus flavor, and then move forward in this amalgamation, and that'll make everything feel better. But that's a tall order.
It's a tall order, and I'm not 100% confident because that's the thing about Daredevil. Is like it could be one of Marvel Television's best, and
It would still fall short of the best. Like I think Daredevil's the best adaptation of Marvel.
that's why
a comic.
Penguin was so loved. Penguin's not it's not all about violence. It's not all
It
about
has it.
action. It's there,
Yeah.
but it's not about that.
great writing.
Like the violence comes from within. It's the character's turmoil within. That like the violence is reflective of what the characters are
100%.
going on underneath. Like, I mean, the season 3 has the oneer, which is also not just a cool oneer of action scenes. It is also a rich dialogue tension scene where he's getting captured by Albanian prisoners
Yeah.
and having to talk his way out of this and not reveal he's blind while
Yeah.
doing it. It is a really great season, and I but then it's like, well, let's say this is a success. Will Marvel hype this up and use this show to help change some of the conversation around it
and mature up their audience? Like, we are 18 years into this run. Like, I've literally used Daredevil as an example since Daredevil season 1 of like the punch lands twice, because you care about Kingpin, you care about Daredevil. It's one of the things I say most about when you have good writing. The punch lands twice, you feel it all. But we also are at a point where 18 years into the MCU, we need the audience to grow up like Daredevil was. So I hope this show makes it so, like, you know, a violent punch is emotionally impactful and physically violent, not gory for gory's sake. I think if you make something R-rated, you can do it the wrong way and the right way. I'm hoping Daredevil shepherds it in the right way, but we're 2 weeks out.
That's what I'm concerned about with the violence.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we got scenes that are gorier. And I'm like,
that's
not about
not
that.
what we're
this
here.
isn't Saw traps.
Yeah, like I don't need to watch that movie. I
Yeah.
need to watch Daredevil.
Yeah, it's about the emotion that is associated
comes
when
from
you watch
conversations.
the violence. Yes. And the conversations are key to the entire experience.
I trust the actors.
The journalism of Karen Page, the lawyerism of Foggy,
And the
and
earnestness
Matt.
of Foggy.
Yes.
Opposite the cynicism of Matt that is earnest.
Like, I couldn't imagine. I'm like, what the hell was this show that they were going to do
the
before
Spin
Karen
City
and
show,
Foggy?
that thing, whatever that was.
Yeah, I was like, was this supposed to be some like giant action
I
narrative?
think Mark Waid, like, they did a run that was very like cheeky and self-aware, and I think that would have tied into the more She-Hulk take.
Yeah.
But that would have not worked with the audience that loves Daredevil, the adaptation we've had so far.
And the resolve that Matt is always dealing with when it comes to Catholic guilt,
Yeah.
and his relationship with God.
Yeah, that's violent this way and this way.
And that is a hard conversation to write into a show and make it real and believable. And like, that's the part of Matt Murdock that's beautiful, is he is struggling internally and physically a lot of the time. It really feels like, that's why we love Charlie Cox, because it really feels like this is a human being
that we've lived through stuff with.
He doesn't have super strength, and he's got super skills, but he doesn't have super strength.
Yeah.
And, you know, and She-Hulk, I let it go when he's doing like weird ass flips and acrobatics.
When he bamps in,
Where I'm like, all right, I guess he's just a superhuman.
He just
now.
appeared from
But,
nowhere, huh?
All right, yeah, like, fine, I'll do it on She-Hulk show.
Yeah,
sure.
that is in her comic. That's a different tone.
Exactly, that's her narrative.
Yeah.
But in the Daredevil show, I'm like, that's what makes Daredevil so loved, because we know this guy could really get hurt.
But the good news is Daredevil into Thunderbolts into Fantastic Four is theoretically, that could be a comeback tour.
That's what I always hear.
Consistency could be, I mean, that's a hell of a trifecta.
Are they gonna, do you think they'll actually utilize Daredevil though to give momentum to the
I
conversation?
think hopefully starting next week, they really start going like, okay, it's Daredevil. Like, I really hope that becomes the event of Marvel's new year, because they didn't really push Captain America. They did not certainly push Spider-Man. I'm hoping they're waiting till like late Q1 and they go like, this is our time, because they have 9 properties this year. I really hope there's like a cobweb shaking moment with Daredevil that goes, Daredevil, Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, we're back. I want all those TikTokers that drive me insane yelling their catchphrases to have something. I want to feel that energy of Marvel again. I want that event moment. And I hope that starts with Daredevil.
God, I hope so too, man.
I want it for Marvel. I want it for comic fans. I want it for me.
Do you know why I'm feeling so strongly about this? This is the inverse structure. We can end it here.
All right.
This is the inverse force. Like, let's talk a lot about whys, and then we'll briefly talk about the main subject. Now let's talk about the main subject a lot, and I'll talk about why. Where all this kept coming from yesterday, it was Olivia, my wife's birthday yesterday, and I took her to Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
And we went on the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, and it started there. I'm like, oh man, I love these guys. And then I'm like, when you walk out of a Disneyland ride, you go into the shops, and then you got all the Guardians of the Galaxy toys and everything. I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's kind of cool, because like, this is so different from the comics, to my understanding. It's so different from the
very much
comics.
so.
And the James Gunn really made it his own. And look how special it is, like when you see them. And then I'm like looking at other Marvel shops. So I'm walking around Avengers Campus, and I'm going, oh yeah, I got Iron Man stuff, the Captain America stuff, the Spider-Man stuff, all these things. Then it got followed by this weird, icky feeling that started feeling like artificial, because I love Disneyland, and I love being able to go with my wife after being with her for almost 10 years and being like, we still have a blast together when we're together for more than like 10 hours straight, and we could still have like an amazing, great time. And I treasure that trip a lot. And then there's like isolated private moments I would have when I'm thinking about like, I just passed this billboard that had Spider-Man on it here. And suddenly something feels like this is the product that was bought, and then they stop caring about the shaping at a certain point with the quality of its actual storytelling. And you start feeling it on the grounds of Disneyland.
Yeah.
And then I started. Then when I was in line, I saw the reviews for Captain America, and I was like, oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
And then I saw someone dressed as Sam Wilson, and I was
then
like,
you got
oh
excited
man,
again.
no, I don't know if anyone. Oh, I didn't get excited. I was like,
Oh.
I don't know who's excited about this
Oh, I
version
see.
walking around right now. I don't see anyone trying to take a photo. I'm sure plenty of people go and take plenty of photos with him. I'm just saying, like, watching it in passing was like, oh, it's a little bit of a little bummer on the heart. And yeah, so it did start hitting me like in a personal feeling vibe, because it was bringing me back to, like, that's why all this is here to begin with at Disneyland, because of how much of an emotional impact Marvel has left. Like the journey of Iron Man and believing in these possibilities and escaping into the multiple, like the world of the Netflix shows versus the world of the movies were two different worlds, but they were two very cool worlds that you can get lost in. And this is our third time we're doing this show, and Magic, I had never felt the loss of Marvel Magic more than to be at weirdly Disneyland,
Wow.
where they're parading their products in front of me. And
Felt like products.
and it just felt like what I just said. It felt like a product. And now that's what it suddenly felt like. Oh, this is what the world it's the movies have caught up. But it's not all, but that's the problem. I'm part of the problem. I'm contributing to it right now. Is that not every movie they make is like bad.
I was about to counter. I started hosting with, like, in a real way with Winter Soldier. Like the first thing I was doing heavy press on was the pre-production of Winter Soldier. When they announced Falcon, one of my first videos I ever did was at a network called Bite Size Networks about oh my God, they're gonna do Falcon. And I looked at his comic wardrobe and I predicted how they'd adjust it. So this movie, particularly Captain America 4, was so important to me because it's like the full arc from like Falcon, Sam Wilson. That's when I started hosting. I hosted the 23 on the road to Endgame at the El Cap. I literally was there for 3 days hosting the movies and then like landing with Endgame. My first red carpet was Infinity War. Like, I came up through this, and like a lot of the new generation of internet folk, they were children when these movies started, so they've come up with this as like it's a novelty. But like, I was reading the comics when it was something you hid. I was hosting when it was like, oh, that's crazy, they're making a movie with Falcon in it. And now it's gotten to the point where it's so commodified that we take it for granted. I'm still able in a movie that isn't what I wanted it to be, which I've made clear, that is still good but not great, to find the magic in it. My issue is that I don't feel like Marvel is breathing the magic into it for people that don't have it already like built in. Like, I've already got like a little store of the fairy dust that goes, and then I go, oh, that's Falcon. If you don't have that, I don't know what you're feeling. And I want that feeling that people got with Iron Man again, when like no one knew who Iron Man was. I don't care who you are. You probably didn't know Iron Man in 08, and it was still magic. I think that we need to eventize this stuff. We need to decommodify it a bit. We need to find that magic without it feeling like a product for people beyond me. Because I'm going to love anything at least a little, but it's for everyone else, that little spark, and you do not feel like it's a product.
You know, I actually do feel, and that's what I mean. When something is like not being received well, that part of the conversation does overtake my mind and my emotions, and I forget, like, oh yeah, I actually did love the last movie they did a lot, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I love the shit out of
Spider-Man,
I love Spider, and so I get what it's like to be a part of that, where something happens, and I think like, well, Marvel's the leader of all this, and in a situation like this, I go, well, where does Marvel like often put most of their attention? The thing that they really need to make a lot of money. So I get that, like, no wonder you prop up and push a lot of this Captain America stuff, because you need this to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But right now, gears need to shift. I think what you need to prop up, and I don't feel like it's going to cost insane amounts of money to really try to keep putting out there that this highly qualitative, well-loved thing like a Spider-Man show is something that would cost them exuberant amounts of money.
Arguably your biggest hero. Just talk about
Your
him.
biggest hero with like, the
show's good.
It's such a great show.
This is just an ad for Spider-Man.
It is an ad for Spider-Man. That's what I mean. We've simultaneously been like, Marvel with Spider-Man.
Stop commodifying, but watch Spider-Man.
But do you see how our conversation seems to like not really, at least on my end, kind of put Spider-Man in a separate camp when talking about Marvel, when talking about the MCU? I'm even doing it. I'm
You're separating
compartmentalizing it.
Yeah.
When I'm like, no, it's supposed to be a part of the same umbrella. It's supposed to be part of the same thing. And it's supposed to be part of the driving force of this conversation right now. But we keep going, you should do something kind of like a Spider-Man and then focus on the quality of that and uplift that. I'm like, they could literally do that right now. Like, someone just has to press a few buttons on a keyboard or something and make it happen.
Yeah.
But they don't do it. I do think, in terms of this magic you're talking about, Thunderbolts.
Oh, dude, I have so much.
have
Every
a lot of
trailer,
faith.
I'm like,
Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, I think can do that. And I said it in the trailer reaction for Thunderbolts that with these two trailers, even though these characters come from prior things, there's something about the way they're pitching these trailers that feels like you could kind of just walk into this movie.
yeah, I agree.
That you don't need to have seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Black Widow, and all, you know.
But it still feels like Marvel.
It still feels like Marvel. It feels like it would help. Like, sure, it's a nice enhancer experience,
Right.
but it doesn't feel like I need to go and watch those and do a bunch of homework. It looks like the kind of movie that you could be in like the Midwest and a dad just watching on a Saturday night or go to the theaters, have some popcorn. That's what I mean. I feel like your average person can easily just go and have fun and enjoy this movie. Fantastic Four in a separate universe, smart ass maneuver, because then you definitely, more than likely, maybe other than a potentially confusing post-credit scene, you can go in and enjoy the movie for what it is.
You already
without
had a good 2 hours by the time you're confused.
Exactly. And then then that might open up the door to want to know more.
Yeah.
Same way how when you watch Iron Man, we're starting an Avengers initiative, and half the crowd is excited, and the other half is like, "What are the
That's
Avengers?"
what it used to feel
You
like.
know?
It used to be like we get a little extra bonus, but it doesn't cost the normal person anything.
Yeah.
That's what they need to find again. And I think Thunderbolts is that. I totally agree. I think Fantastic Four is that. That's a little why I'm worried about like what Doomsday and Secret Wars have to be, because that's so niche and so specific. But that's 2 years away. But I really hope this year they find that rhythm again where it feels like everything is important. Not like this is important because we said so, but not that.
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling.
Yeah. I mean, everything just keeps
And
coming
stop
back.
giving away the third act.
Everything keeps coming back down. I know, right? Everything keeps coming back down to money. And right now it's like, well, if you want to keep that money going, elevate your quality products, elevate the ones, even if you don't think it's going to be a juggernaut of a hit, let that conversation over. Like Ted Lasso is a show that doesn't seem to do big numbers for a lot of people who cover it on YouTube, but everyone's heard of it because apparently it's one of the
Dude, it's
best
so
shows
good.
of all time.
So good.
And Shrinking, same thing. A lot of like the best television shows I'm aware are some of the best television shows that I've never seen.
Yeah.
Like Severance. But
Greg,
everyone's
get Apple TV.
everyone says I watch
3
Shrinking.
Apple TV
I
shows.
watch Shrinking. But everyone keeps talking about these shows, and I understand that maybe I don't know the actual financial number. They make multiple seasons, so they must do well.
Well, Apple's in an interesting spot where they get to have everything they make be marketing budget because it's advertising for their products.
Yeah, I know it's great for them,
So
man.
they literally like can write off everything.
I walk into an Apple store to fix something, and I'm seeing an ad for Severance just blasting in
an
the background.
Ouroboros.
Yeah, it's just on
so
the big
perfect,
giant
right?
wall.
And they can have like iPhones in the TV show. And they're like, well, there's
It
the
actually
market.
worked on me to watch Shrinking. There was like this funny ad that they have with no dialogue on Shrinking. I'm like, I should watch this show. It's Harrison Ford and Jason Segel. This looks like a fun
Cut
time.
to I'm affected my psychology and therapy of life. Our second episode because of Shrinking.
Yeah. So, but I think that's what Marvel needs to do with their stuff that is getting good feedback.
Yeah. I think they need to look less like a corporation for a little bit, go back to their creativity. And I would love to have those conversations with people that love it as much as I do without feeling like there's a little asterisk of like, we should jump on this because they're down right now. And I do feel like that's part of it.
John, how's the water looking? Thank God.
Oh, I got a boogie.
Coy's got to leave.
We survived a lot
We survived.
today.
We survived. John got here at 1 p.m. It is now 6:11 p.m. Coy got here at 3 p.m. It is now 6:11 p.m.
What a pod.
And we got a 45-minute podcast or
Hey,
something,
we
45
got it
minute
in.
hour. I don't know how long this is.
We literally mid-flood filmed a podcast. I'm proud of us.
Mid-flood. We stopped.
Yeah.
We got it. We got this train back on.
I'm proud of us.
Anyway, Captain America 4 is out. What do you guys think? Does the negative reviews bother you? Do you agree or disagree with the critics? Leave your thoughts down below, please. Thank you, John, for handling this. Multicon, baby. Keep a lookout. We are going to be there February 22nd. All the rejects will be having a panel, and then Coy is hosting a separate one, and I'm supposed to be hosting a separate one. It was announced in the, what newspaper was that? Hollywood Reporter?
Variety and Hollywood Reporter.
Both?
Yeah. We fancy.
We're in the Hollywood Reporter Variety. It's like, wow, you don't need to be A-list to get your
No,
name in
not
there.
anymore.
No, you just
They
need to
let
know
anybody
you just need to
in.
know the right name to get your name on there.
Makes me feel valid.
Yeah, so we're gonna be there, and I don't know what I'm doing yet, but it'll be good. I'll come unprepared.
I'll be there all day. It's gonna be great. Like
Yeah, we'll be there all
we'll just
day
hang.
talking with people. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time.
And every dollar goes to the wildfire relief, and it's literally $35, which is insane because cons are hundreds. It's the least expensive way to meet a lot of awesome people that I've ever actually as a nerd seen. And I do regional cons. Like this is unheard of. So it's a dope thing for a dope reason for a dope price. February 22nd.
Have you seen the Lands of the Fires yet?
No,
like,
I have
like
been.
Altadena.
I
or
haven't had the heart
Palisades?
to. I've been to Altadena to help, but I haven't been able to drive around.
I haven't seen the grounds yet myself.
I don't. I know I can't unsee it, so I'm trying to like live as long as I can. I'm very aware of the trauma of the people that have gone through it because I've met people, and the visuals are going to make it real in a different way. It's already real, but I just haven't had the heart yet.
I would like to face the reality of it because when I think of Palisades, I do have the memory of how beautiful the Palisades and Altadena.
Altadena is one of my favorite neighborhoods in LA, and it was one of the places I was looking to move. So I've got a very specific, like, right now it's still mythically the same.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And once that goes away, even though I've met people and even though I've experienced loss through them, as soon as I see it, it's gone. So I'm trying to, I know it's immature, but I'm like, keep it in my memory.
Yeah, I know. We'll see it one day.
Yeah. But I do want to go. I mean, I've been helping, and my fiance has been doing such amazing work in Altadena, helping so many people out. And I know a lot of people in the Palisades helping out, but yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon.